Hello.
Hello.
Kayla Lords.
John Brownstone.
Of Loving BDSM, where we help kinksters like you have happy, healthy power exchange relationships. We're back to answer another question. This time, it's from a kinkster who's like, how do you go from the online thing to the in-person thing? That's not always an easy thing.
No, it's not.
So, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Okay, let's get straight into the question. It is short and sweet with a bonus question added in. How do I know when to move from a dating app or FetLife to meeting in real life? How do you find niche kinks? I'm looking for a sub-daddy, but there isn't even a FetLife group for that. So let's start with the second question first.
Okay.
My thought is when you cannot find a group in a space like FetLife, it's sort of like a munch. You make your own group.
Right.
If there are others out there, eventually they will find you. It won't be quick and easy, but
they'll find it. Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you create the group, you could go and if you know people that you think might be interested, you can recruit for your group.
Exactly. The other thing I would say is think about the other ways people might be labeling themselves that mean what you mean, right? If you are looking for a sub-daddy, which is not a grouping of terms I've ever heard,
Nope.
Somebody else might use different terms to mean the same thing. And so you're just using different labels, but you're speaking the same language. So that's another thing to consider when you're looking for niche kinks. So I wanted to throw that in there because I know that's a question some people do tend to have. But the big question is, how do you know when you go? It's time to go online to in person.
Well, it's kind of a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no set time frame for any of that. Everybody proceeds in their own way. Some people move faster, some people move slower, some people, there's somewhere in between. And it's, I think it's just comes down to, when you're communicating with somebody that you feel comfortable.
Right. Do you, I think it's typical to feel a little nervous, maybe even it rises to the level of anxious. But if you are shaking in your boots, terrified, maybe you're not ready yet. Right. But it's okay to be a little bit nervous before you meet somebody. I do think there's something to be said for kind of whatever your basic checklist of, I think this person is real and it's worth taking the extra step to meet in person, to think about what that checklist looks like. For us, we were online only, talking on the actual telephone when I used to use my phone as an actual phone. I don't do that anymore. We did that for months before we met in person. Now, that was because we were long distance. But by the time we had gotten to that point, we knew each other well enough. We absolutely knew each other's real legal names.
Yep.
We knew where the other worked. We had a good idea of each other's daily, weekly schedules. We had an idea of what each other's lives sort of looked like. And we were friends and wanted to hang out with one another, even if it didn't turn sexy or kinky.
Right.
But we also understood each other's kinks, knew what we were looking for, had talked about what power exchange would look like for us in person, what a kink scene would look like for us in person. And now, to a certain extent, when you're long distance, you kind of have the luxury of time because it's not usually a fast thing to move from online to in person.
No, it's not. I think it was like 3.5 months.
Something
for us?
like that. Yeah, close to 4 months, something like
Maybe,
that.
Yeah.
But that for us was our comfort level, and that was a long process. I will say I do think that some, not all, people are more inclined to move too quickly than too slowly.
Yeah.
I'm going to be leery of a potential partner who is rushing me, pressuring me, making me feel guilty because I don't feel like I'm ready yet. I'm also going to be looking for signs like, have we already had a time frame where I didn't know where the hell that person was and they weren't talking to me and we'd had radio silence. Well, if you're doing that to me before we've even met in person, I'm not hopeful for, in person.
Now, and one thing I will say about the in-person, for the initial first meeting, I would do it in a very oh gosh, I need a word and I can't
Public?
think. Well, you want to meet in a public place, you know, but that wasn't the word I was looking for.
I know. I didn't think
Yeah.
so. Pressure free?
Pressure free. Thank you.
There's another word for that, but my brain can't come up with it.
You know, so
Relaxed.
So it's pressure free. You have the ability to relax because let's face it, you know, whether it's, you know, non-kink meeting or kinky meeting with a person for the first time, you know, you still want to get to know that person.
Right.
All right. And, you know, if you do so in a public place, whether you know, go out for a bite to eat somewhere, a cafe, you go to a coffee shop, have a cup of coffee, it allows both of you to talk because you want to see if what you had online translates to real life.
Right. And you also want, both of you need the freedom to go, okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I would like to leave now.
Right.
You have a nice life.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that first meeting, yes. I'm sure there's a better word than pressure free. Somebody is yelling it at their device right now.
I know.
But yeah, I agree. I think that you want to keep I think it's okay to have high expectations for the person because you're hoping that they continue to be who they have said they were this whole time. But I would keep your expectations low for what actually happens. This is a little bit like a next level of that first conversation, because now we're going to have that first conversation face to face. We're going to be in each other's presence, and there's going to be body language, and there's going to be facial expressions, and there's going to be
there's going to be a lot of cues that you are not able to get and see and experience. You know, whether you're chatting through some like FetLife or text or, you know, email.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think
excuse me,
it is okay for both partners to be very nervous, which can sometimes screw up a first impression. And I am that person who can completely make you think I am not the person you thought I was because I'm now out of my comfort zone. But that is a thing I would tell somebody before I met them in person for the first time. I'd be like, hey, you know how I'm chatty with you online? That's because this is easy. I am terrified about this meeting. I will probably be very nervous. I'm going to over communicate that because I know that about myself. But I think that in the deciding when it's time and when you're ready to meet in person, I think there are things that you can look to your potential partner, the person you're trying to meet, for green flags and red flags. You know, red flags is pressure, high expectations, not respecting your comfort zone. You know, if you're like, hey, I just want to like get together for a cup of coffee first and then we'll take it from there. You know, there are plenty of people who will meet a person and for the first time physically meet them at the munch.
True.
Knowing that maybe there's a party or a dungeon thing afterwards. And the whole idea is I'm going to meet you in this kink affiliated public space. And if it works out, hey, we'll go do the other thing. Right. So, you know, look to make sure, you know, that you're paying attention to how the other person is treating that, right? Like if they are telling you, hey, I'm nervous too, you know, hey, I'd like to do this, but yes, let's go as slow as we need to go. Like if they just continue to be the person they've been online, then I think those are green flags.
Yeah.
But, you know, be wary of that. And also make sure that you're not the one rushing the other person. You might be ready to go. You have no doubts. You're like, this is it. This is what I want. And the other person
you have to be mindful of the other person.
Exactly.
And where they're at, because they may not be at that point as quickly as you are.
Now, here's a caveat, and I don't think it happens all the time, but I think it happens often enough that there's somebody out there going, well, this is my experience. And that is the person who strings you along and is never ready to meet in person. What your personal time threshold for that is, it is personal. Some people are going to be like, hey, we live in the same town and we've tried 4 times over the past month to make this work, and you bail every time, or you push it back every time. What's going on here? For others, it's 3 months, it's 6 months. It's fine. Sometimes people say they want to meet in person and what they really want is online. Sometimes people are not who they say they are, and they know they're going to get found out. And then sometimes people are just really anxious and
anxious, shy, introverted, you know, there could be
all the things. And only you can decide if you are willing to wait out this person's shyness or nervousness for however long that might be. So, yeah, there's no real clear-cut answer.
No.
Like you said at the beginning, it's completely personal.
Yeah.
It really is based on signs and signals from each of you and, mutually being ready for it.
And I know for me, it wasn't like a particular thing. It was just something that after an amount of time, it was like, I just knew. Okay. I know that's not an explanation or, a true answer, but I think when it comes down to it, you just kind of know.
Yes. By the time we were meeting each other in person, face to face, neither of us slept the night before because we were so excited.
Yeah.
If you can get to that point mutually, then, regardless of how it turns out, that's a perfect sign. But sometimes you have to give yourself and maybe, your partner a little nudge, and that's okay, as long as there's not pressure and guilt and all the, unnecessary stuff that goes along with that.
True.
But yeah, that is the imperfect, unscientific, probably very dissatisfying answer.
Sorry.
But I know that it's a question people have,
Yeah.
especially if you've had past experiences that were negative where, you thought you were going to meet with them and then they canceled on you 10 times. Or you did have that in-person meeting. Maybe you had your first scene and then you got ghosted. There's no way to guarantee that none of that will ever happen to you. There just isn't. There just comes a point for you personally when you go, I'm ready, or I need a little bit more time, or I have some things I need to get answered and I need to feel like I know about this person first. And that's fine. Okay. That really is fine. But when you do, we highly recommend public place separately get there so you can separately leave. Make sure you're both who you said you were.
Right.
And then you can go from there what you do next.
And both of you, I think it's a good idea for both parties. Make sure you have a safe call.
Yes. Now, explain what a safe call is.
Safe call is when you are meeting somebody for the first time, especially in kink lifestyle, although it could go for any.
Absolutely anything.
It's actually a good rule of thumb for anybody meeting for the first time. But you have a designated person that say, hey, I'm going to meet this person that I met online for the first time and don't know what to expect. So at a specific time, I'm going to call you to let you know everything is okay. If you don't hear from me,
call me.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it goes so well that you forget you're supposed to call your person. Now, in the 21st century and 2024 and beyond, there are things like Life 360 that friends add themselves to. I am too fucking old. I cannot imagine anybody being able to track my movements. But if you've got something like that and you've got a friend that you trust, you're like, here's where I'm going to go. Here's where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
Here's how long I'm supposed to be here. If you see movement, if you call me, reach out, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But yeah, safe calls are sort of an old-ish school way for kinksters to make sure they stayed safe when they went to meet somebody new, whether it was just a regular old date or whether it was for play. So there's nothing wrong with that.
I think, yes, it is a old...
because it's before things like Life 360,
right?
Where you could track each other.
Exactly. But it may be one of those things that have been around since forever, but I think it's one of those things that are tried and true.
Yes.
And kind of, I think will always be what it is.
Yes. Some version of it needs to exist. If you are going off to meet a stranger, essentially a stranger, please let somebody in your life know. And if you are that person who's like, but I don't have any kinky friends, you do not have to tell them you're going to meet a kink person.
Right.
You just say, hey, I got a date. We've been talking online. Now we're doing the in-person thing. Could you be my safe call? You should hear from me by this time. Here's the name of the person I'm going to be with. Yes, give their legal name. Here's the place we're supposed to be. I will call you, not even a text. This is a phone call, okay? I will call you at this time. If you do not hear from me, please call me. If I don't answer, call somebody who has authority because something has gone wrong. And sometimes it's a false alarm and nothing has gone wrong. But in this world, let us please maybe, err on the side of caution. I would rather have to be a little bit embarrassed because there was a well check done in my house. Right. And to tell an officer, no, I'm really alive. I just my phone died. I forgot to tell my friend, whatever it was. But yeah, that's a thing that I have not only known since I figured out I was kinky back in 2012, which feels like forever ago, but it's really not. But I've, read books that were written in the late 90s, early aughts, and that was the advice then too. Yeah. So I have no doubt it's a very long-standing kind of thing.
Yeah,
but practice. Yeah, there is Life 360, and if that's more your style, whatever, just have something. Yeah.
Something
where somebody knows
something in
where
place.
You are.
Right.
But yeah, that was a little bit of a side tangent we went on there, wasn't it?
It was.
But hopefully that helps somebody.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I think it's something that bears mentioning, to be safe at all times.
It's easy to forget for sure.
Okay.
Okay, so if you have experience having to take it from online to in person and things you've learned and things that, you always do or you never do or whatever, please feel free to share in the comments below. If you have a question you'd like us to answer, the link to submit that question is also in the description box. And if you like this video, what are words? I've forgotten how this goes. We love a thumbs up. If you like it enough to want to come back for more, please consider subscribing.
And go ahead and ring that notification bell to get updates and new content.
And now ring my bell in your head. Like I do. And if you really like what we do,
gotcha,
want to help us do more of it, get access to our Discord server, an extra video, an extra live stream, all kinds of goodies, you can join us on Patreon, patreon.com/KillowLords, or use the link down below.